Now!
You ever wonder what really happens inside a mall after midnight? No customers, no laughter, no background music, just silence. A silence so heavy it feels alive. That was the reality for Mark, a night guard working the graveyard shift at a suburban shopping mall. It was supposed to be the easiest job in the world. Watch the cameras, patrol the halls, and wait for morning. But on his third night, something happened that made him realize the cameras were showing more than reality. At exactly 1:30 a.m., one of the monitors flickered. Mark leaned forward, squinting at the grainy feed from the toy store corridor. A shadowy figure walked slowly past the display of dolls. At first, he thought it was just a late-night cleaner. But then he remembered. He was the only one in the building. Grabbing his flashlight, he hurried down the hall. His footsteps echoed against the polished floor. When he turned the corner, the corridor was empty. The toy store was dark, the glass untouched. Not a soul in sight. Mark forced a laugh, shook his head, and walked back to the office. But when he sat down and looked at the monitors, his stomach dropped. The figure was still there, pacing, moving back and forth across the same spot. He leaned closer, staring at the screen. The figure wasn't blurry anymore. It was sharp, solid, almost too real. And then the impossible happened. The figure stopped pacing. It turned toward the camera. Its face pale and stretched, grinned wide, eyes black, teeth too many. And Mark noticed something that made his heart stop. Behind the figure, on the monitor, was his own chair, his own office, his own back, sitting right where he was at that moment. Mark froze. Slowly, he turned his head, afraid of what he might see. His chair creaked. The air behind him felt heavy. He didn't want to look, but his instincts screamed at him to move. With shaking hands, he spun around. The office was empty. Nothing there. No shadow, no figure, just the humming of the monitors and the flicker of static. Mark sat back down, his pulse racing. He wanted to believe it was just his imagination, just a trick of the old security system. But when he looked back at the monitor, his blood turned to ice. The figure hadn't disappeared. It was closer now, standing directly behind his chair on the screen, grinning, watching. And Mark realized something terrifying. The camera wasn't lying. It was showing him what was about to happen. Hospitals at night are not what you think. No rushing doctors. No busy footsteps. Just long hallways drowned in shadows and the hum of fluorescent lights. For Emily, a young nurse on her first solo night shift, that silence was heavier than she ever imagined. Her assignment was simple. Monitor the floor, answer call lights, keep watch until morning. But at 2:12 a.m., a sound broke the stillness, the sharp buzz of a call light. Emily glanced at the board. Her stomach tightened. The signal was coming from room 306. Her mind stuttered. Room 306 wasn't on her rounds. That room had been locked since before she started the job. Whispers from older staff said a patient died there in a way no one wanted to talk about. Still, the call light blinked, steady and urgent. Someone or something was asking for help. Emily hesitated, gripping her chart. Her footsteps echoed as she walked down the corridor. The air grew colder near the end of the hall. She stopped at the door. The light above it glowed red. With trembling hands, she slid the key into the lock. The door opened with a groan. Inside, the room was dim. The bed, covered in white sheets, was no longer empty. A figure lay beneath the blanket. The heart monitor beside it flickered to life, beeping steadily. Emily's breath caught. This wasn't possible. There were no patients assigned to this room. She stepped closer. The figure on the bed shifted, its head turning slowly toward her. The face was pale, the eyes wide and unblinking. And then it spoke. Emily. Her knees almost buckled. That voice, it wasn't a question. It wasn't weak. It was sharp, knowing. She whispered, How do you know my name? The figure grinned, lips stretching too far. The monitor beside it beeped faster. Emily backed toward the door, panic rising in her throat. But before she could move, every call light on the floor erupted at once. Buzzers screamed down the hall. Red lights blinked above every door. Emily turned, heart pounding. The hallway was no longer empty. Figures stood in every doorway, their faces hidden, their bodies pale against the flickering lights. Each one whispered her name. She stumbled back into room 306, slamming the door shut. But when she turned around, the bed was empty. Sheets pulled tight. The monitor flatlined. The voice came again, right behind her ear. You should never have opened the door. Gas stations at night are a different world. Empty pumps, flickering lights, endless highways swallowed by darkness. For Jason, working the overnight shift at a lonely roadside station was supposed to be easy money. But everything changed the night the man in black showed up. It was 2:13 a.m. when the bell above the door chimed. Jason looked up from his magazine. A man walked in, tall, silent, dressed in a black coat that dragged against the floor. He didn't say a word. He didn't even look at Jason. He just grabbed a single lighter from the rack, set it on the counter, and slid over exact change. Jason tried small talk, but the man never spoke. His eyes were strange, dark, empty, almost hollow. And when the receipt printed, the man didn't take it. He simply walked out, lighter in hand, vanishing into the night. Jason shook it off. Creepy but harmless, until the next night. At the exact same time, 2:13 a.m., the bell chimed again. The same man, the same coat, the same silent routine. Another lighter, another exit. It became a ritual. Every night, same man, same time, same lighter. Jason started to dread 2:13. He tried to ask questions. Hey, you live around here? No response. Why always a lighter? Silence. The man never blinked, never spoke. One stormy night, Jason's curiosity snapped. When the man left, Jason locked the register and followed. Rain poured down, the lot glowing under the buzzing neon sign. But when he stepped outside, his breath caught. All around the gas station, on the wet asphalt, dozens of lighters stood upright, each one burning, tiny flames in a perfect circle. The man in black stood at the center, staring at Jason. Jason froze. The flames hissed in the rain but never went out. The man lifted, his arm slowly, and pointed at Jason. Not a sound came from his mouth, but Jason heard it. A whisper, low, inside his skull. You're next. The lights above the pumps flickered, then went dark. For a split second, the world vanished into blackness. When they flicked back on, the circle of flames was gone. The lighters, the man, everything. The lot was empty. Jason stumbled back inside, soaked and shaking. He tried to convince himself it was stress, hallucination, but when he sat back down at the counter, something caught his eye. On the display rack behind the counter, where the lighters had been, only one was left. A single black lighter, still warm, still burning. Office towers are unsettling at night. Empty cubicles, dead silence. The hum of lights that should have been shut off hours ago. For Daniel, the building's janitor, nights were long but predictable. Sweep the halls, empty the trash, take the service elevator down to the lobby. But one night the elevator had other plans. It was 12:47 a.m. when Daniel pressed the button. The door slid open with a metallic groan. He stepped in, hit lobby, and leaned against the rail, waiting for the familiar jolt. The doors closed. The elevator hummed and then kept going. Past the lobby, past the basement, deeper. Daniel frowned. He pressed the stop button. Nothing. The panel didn't respond. The digital floor numbers glitched, flashing symbols he didn't recognize. With every second, the elevator sank lower into levels that didn't exist on any blueprint. Finally, the doors slid open. Daniel braced himself. The floor looked like an office. Rows of desks, filing cabinets, scattered papers. But everything was decayed, as if it had been abandoned for decades. The air was heavy, stale. He stepped out cautiously, his footsteps echoing too loud. That's when he heard it. A whisper, not from one voice, dozens. Faint, layered, overlapping. Words he couldn't make out. His skin prickled. He spun around. The elevator doors had closed. Panic surged. He ran back, slamming his fists on the panel. The doors wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder. He turned, scanning the room. The cubicles were no longer empty. Shapes stood in the shadows, motionless, watching. Daniel's breathing quickened. He backed away, muttering, "This isn't real. This isn't real." The lights flickered. The shapes stepped forward. Their faces were blurred, features stretched like melted wax. Each one whispered the same phrase, voices hissing in unison. "Stay with us." Daniel bolted. He ran between the desks, searching for stairs, an exit, anything. But every hallway twisted back into the same room. Every turn brought him to the same row of cubicles. The whispers followed, surrounding him. And then silence. Complete silence. The shapes were gone. The room empty. Only the elevator stood across the floor, its doors now wide open. Daniel sprinted toward it, stumbling inside. He slammed the button for the lobby. The doors shut. The elevator groaned, rising this time. The floor numbers blinked back to normal. Relief washed over him, until he glanced at the mirrored panel beside the door. His reflection wasn't his own. It was smiling. Wide. Too wide. The elevator dinged. The doors opened to the lobby. But when Daniel stepped out, the lobby wasn't the same. The desks were gone. The floor was cracked. The walls were peeling. And the clocks all read the same time, 3:33 a.m. He had been gone only a minute. But something told him he'd never really left. Some buildings are dead long before they're demolished. Empty desks, dust-covered phones, computers frozen in time. For Ryan, a night watchman desperate for work, the abandoned call center was supposed to be easy money. Sit at the front desk, walk the halls once an hour. Nothing more. But on his second night, he realized the building wasn't empty. At 2:45 a.m., a sharp ring shattered the silence. Ryan jumped, nearly spilling his coffee. He froze, staring at the nearest desk phone. The display glowed, showing an incoming call. But the line read something impossible. Extension 306. Ryan frowned. All extensions had been disconnected months ago. Still, the ringing continued. Reluctantly, he lifted the receiver. "Hello?" At first, only static, then faint whispers. Not one voice, dozens, layered, twisted, and all of them whispered the same thing. His name, over and over. "Ryan! Ryan! Ryan!" His skin crawled. He slammed the phone down. Silence returned. He told himself it was a prank, maybe old wiring. But before he could breathe, every phone on the floor began to ring at once. Dozens of shrill tones filled the air. The sound was deafening. Ryan staggered back, covering his ears. The computer monitors flickered on by themselves. Screens glowing green in the darkness. Text scrolled across them. Old chat logs, conversations, names, dates. Ryan leaned closer, scanning the words, and his stomach turned cold. They were transcripts from people who had gone missing. Reports of last phone calls, last messages, all typed out on the screens. Then new text appeared. The words typed themselves, one letter at a time. "You're next." Ryan's heart thundered. He bolted for the exit, his boots slamming against the tile. The lights flickered overhead, plunging the hallways into darkness. Phones still rang behind him, their shrill cries chasing him through the building. He reached the lobby doors, yanking them open. Cold night air hit his face. Relief surged until he noticed the reflection in the glass. It wasn't his. The reflection was grinning, wide, too wide. He stumbled outside, gasping, but the ringing didn't stop. It followed him into the parking lot. The glowing windows of the call center pulsed like watchful eyes. Ryan fumbled for his keys, desperate to get into his car. When he finally looked down, his hands froze. His phone was in his pocket. It was ringing. The screen glowed with the same impossible message. Extension 306. And this time he didn't have to answer. The voice was already inside the car with him. Subscribe for more scary stories and horror content every day. I'd like the video if you enjoy horror and dark storytelling. And comment your scariest night shift experience. We might feature it in a future video.